Our next session is titled Understanding the Nafs in the Digital Age. Our speaker is Dr. Saleem Niazi. Dr. Saleem Niazi is currently studying Islamic sciences and classical texts under qualified scholars in California, in Turkey, and in Jordan. He additionally manages Noor Publications, a non-profit publishing house dedicated to producing practical and accessible texts on Islamic spirituality. The rest of his time that he spends is on developing an epistemologically sound educational curriculum for Muslim children via homeschooling his own children. His area of interest in both his medical practice and as well as his children's education is the removal of the two-bucket syndrome, Islamic and secular, that undergirds both modern medicine and science education. He's a practicing internal medicine physician and has completed his medical residency at the University of Chicago North Shore program, where he served as chief resident with a focus on the development and management of educational programs. So likewise, inshallah, he'll be leading our next session, which is an exposition into understanding the nafs in a digital age. So please, again, I ask all the brothers that are sitting in the back, those that are sitting in the sides, to crowd in towards the middle. Try to come as close to the speaker as possible. Please move up. Let no gaps remain in front of you in the gathering. Please, again, move forward. May Allah Ta'ala reward all of you. And please do turn all of your attention to our dear esteemed speaker, Dr. Saleem Niazi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, alhamdulillah, that my session was assigned to me after Isha, because now I have you captive. They said I can go until like, I think 2 a.m. So no, inshallah it'll be shorter, maybe 1 o'clock. Inshallah, we'll keep it brief. So I just wanted to quickly say, and I know I probably don't need to say this here, mashallah, in Chicago Sharif, and especially not in a place like, mashallah, DarusSalam, but I just want to say that, so I'm a physician by practice, and even though I try to consider myself a student of knowledge, there's really only one reason that I'm up here talking to you, and that is because my teacher, Maulana Tamim, told me to. Otherwise, there's no reason for a doctor to get up and speak to, I don't know how many, mashallah, ulama are here and, proper tulab al-ilm. So with that in mind, I just wanted to say that, Mufti Saab and Maulana Tamim, they've been talking about tasawwuf, and inshallah, that's going to be, obviously, that's the theme of the weekend, right? So one of the things that all of the mashayikh of tasawwuf did in each generation was that they saw what was the challenge of their time. And they spoke to the people about those challenges, and they spoke in a language that they could understand. Now, in our time, we live in modern time, modern science, and in particular, the subject of our topic today, we live in, what we call the digital age. And this, as I'm sure we all know and appreciate and feel all the time, it poses certain challenges to us. So I'm going to come to you from the standpoint of trying to develop a helpful framework, some principles that, inshallah, if we understand these principles, then we will be able to figure out how to deal, inshallah, with the challenge that is before us that really does get in the way of our spirituality. I mean, just a show of hands, and I'll be the first to raise my hand. I personally feel like digital technology, as wonderful as it is, it poses significant challenges to me personally, spiritually. So, I think we're all kind of in the same boat. So, inshallah, I'm going to try to go through this now. What I really wanted to do is, by the end of this, I wanted to have like a separate session, because there's a lot of principles to go through here, and there's some scientific information, and there's all different kinds of data and knowledge. what I would have really loved is to have more of a discussion about this, but inshallah, for the sake of time, I'm just going to try to go, to keep to my 1 a.m. limit. I'm just going to try to go through, inshallah, and then Allah give us tawfiq to have another session where we can really drill down into details and have a discussion, inshallah, maybe based off some of these principles and others that the respected ulama bring to our attention over the course of the weekend. So, bismillah. So let's begin. So, first, everybody should prepare themselves, okay? Smartphones destroy lives. We all need smartphone rehab. And social media is the root of all evil. Yes? We are addicted. No. I don't want to start it that way. That's actually not what I believe. And I don't think it's really a productive way. It's not really productive. So inshallah, let's see if we can drill down into this a little bit. But a few initial points. So in our day and age, we are inundated with information. Yes? We have studies about children and adolescents and digital media. We have studied, some associations for and against adverse effects of screen time on all different things, learning, reading, studying, etc. We have information about mental health and teen depression, increased teen depression and anxiety. We have a plethora of information, and and it's not just like psychological information about screens. It's also, just generally, we just have a glut of information. You hear like one thing about dopamine does this, dopamine does that, statistics about this, then you hear about, it's all kinds of things. Chocolate. This is one journal, it says, chocolate is good for you, and then the same journal the next year said chocolate gives you migraines, don't eat chocolate. We have like people telling us about quantum particles. This is like the Higgs boson, like this is what a Higgs boson graph looks like, okay? And there's like genetic, like there's a gajillion different empirical things and data that like constantly, right, we have a rush of stuff coming to our, like what on earth are we supposed to do with all of this? Like really? So what we have right now, our situation as modern people, is we have like a 3 trillion piece puzzle, right? We're trying to understand reality through science, which is like understanding it through a 3 trillion piece puzzle, except this puzzle comes in a box that doesn't have the picture of what the puzzle is about, right? Science doesn't tell you that. So essentially what it is if you don't have the picture, what are you going to do? Just trial and error. Oh, this one didn't fit, let me try the next one. This one didn't fit, let me try the next one. This one didn't fit, let me try the next one. This one didn't fit, let me try the next one. Now, if it's a 3 trillion piece puzzle, you'll probably be at it for like 2-3 months, and then you'll get a fit. And then when you get a fit, everybody will celebrate, right? Because you gain some knowledge. And that's really kind of what our situation is. But as Muslims, alhamdulillah, Allah has spared us from that agony. We can do the empirical stuff, we can do the scientific stuff, but Allah has given us something else also. So we have our sensory information. This is how we gain knowledge about anything, right? Whether it's, religious, non-religious, this is how we get our knowledge. We can get it through our senses. This is hard, the sky is blue, that's a nice red color, right? Then we have the next level up, we have our logic, our rationality, and I'm including mathematics in there, it's a subset of logic, okay? And if you combine those two, then you can get a lot of different things, and amongst those things, you can also get what we just call, today's science. But then after that, we have a higher source of knowledge, which is the highest quality of knowledge that is possibly conceivable for human beings to attain or to receive, which is from revelation. So if you just think about it rationally, I'm not saying thinking about it from a religious standpoint, just logically, right? If there's a God and that God is sending you revelation, you have access to revelation, reliable revelation, like we have, alhamdulillah. This is objectively the highest quality data you could possibly have. As you go down, rational and sensory and all of that, that's called lower quality evidence. The highest quality evidence is what comes from Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we pin our understanding of everything on the highest quality evidence, just like we would if you're doing something in any field of science. You don't go down to the lowest quality evidence and make your theories off of the lowest quality evidence in any particular field of study, do you? No, you don't. You pin your theories on your highest, and then you bring everything together, but you always make sure that the highest quality evidence is providing the context for everything. So that's what we need to do with revelation, with what Allah has blessed us with. So we want to keep everything in its place. You notice I put the ayahs on top, right? And all of that empirical information that gave you a sample of is on the bottom. I'm not saying it's useless. I'm just saying everything needs to be put in its proper place. So, let's use all the evidence available to us, revelatory, rational, empirical, all of the evidence. Not just empirical, not just revelatory. Let's use all of that to try to figure out what is nafs, what is the digital age. If we can figure out what is the nafs and what is the digital age, then we can figure out how to deal with our nafs in the digital age. So, tell me, you guys, what do you think? What is the digital interface? When I say digital interface, I mean, just any form of interacting with the digital world. It could be your phone, iPad, screen, and digital interface. Is it A, totally unprecedented, B, tremendous opportunity, C, is a tremendous danger, A and B, or B and C? Who says D? Raise your hand, D. Totally unprecedented and a tremendous opportunity. Okay, who says E? B and C. Okay. I think, yeah, there you go. So my claim to you is not totally unprecedented. Oh yeah, sure. So my claim to you is that this is not something unprecedented. And this is really important. Because if something really is truly unprecedented, then how do we know how to deal with it? We can't refer back to what the people before us said, to what Wahi has said, right? It's actually not unprecedented. My claim to you is that the digital interface is actually concentrated dunya. And I will explain to you what that means. And I think that inshallah, if we can understand this, then each one of us will be able to develop our own principles and practices for how to deal with these devices in our path to spirituality. So we have to ask ourselves, if I'm making a claim to you that the digital interface is like concentrated dunya, we have to ask ourselves, what is dunya? So we look in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell us. If you look at the overall, the general kind of principle or the general picture that is painted to us about the dunya, it has 4 features. One is it's transient, it's temporary, and there's many ayat in the Quran that state that. The other is that it's deceptive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to it as it's mata'ul ghurur. It's just a playtime of deception. It's a place of deception. You think that interest is good for you because it increases your dollars exponentially, but it's actually terrible for you, and it's terrible for society. You think that the earth is still and the sun is moving, but actually the sun is still and the earth is moving. At many, many different levels, you look at things and you evaluate them a certain way, but it turns out it's not that way. This is called deception. That's how the world is. Multiplicity, al-hakamut takathur. And I'm going to talk about this more later. Just it's lots of stuff, lots of things, lots of potential things to get distracted by. And the fourth is it's attractive. The Prophet ﷺ said that in the dunya, halwatun wa khadratun. Verily, the dunya is sweet and green, meaning it's attractive. It's attractive both visually, it's attractive experientially. It just pulls you in. So these are the 4 qualities of the dunya that are explained to us in the Quran, and we can see from our experience. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highlights these. So these 4 qualities are exactly the same qualities that our devices have. No different. So these are the 4 qualities. And so what is the digital interface? It is simply a more concentrated version of these 4 characteristics. Because with dunya, you have to go physically and do something. If I want to do something that involves, interest, if I want to do something haram, before digital technology, it was harder for me to do. Now, I can carry that thing in my pocket, and all of these things are present with me at any given moment of time in this concentrated form. And we'll go into this. Now, some of you may be thinking, and I know you're not going to say this out loud right now because of the nature of the forum and where we are, but some of you might be thinking, come on, man, this digital interface, it's just a tool. We don't need to make a big deal. It's a tool. If used in a good way, it's a good thing. If used in a bad way, it's a bad thing. And if you were to say that, I would say, Jazakallah khair, thank you so much. You have just proven my point. Because Allah actually refers to the world also as a tool. The dunya, which Allah refers to, when we say every day, Surah Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, alam, literally in Arabic means the tool by which something is known. And there's only two things that exist, is dunya and the one who created the dunya. So other than the dunya is just Allah. So the alam, this whole world, the whole universe or multiverse or however many there are, who knows, all of that, seen and unseen, we haven't even talked about unseen, that's also part of the world. All of that is alam, alameen, multiple worlds. Literally the Arabic word itself literally means the tool by which Allah is known. So yeah, it is a tool. Just like that, these devices are also tools. So, if the digital interface is a highly concentrated dunya, the digital interface is not unprecedented because the dunya is always there. And also what this means is that the solution to what does a healthy relationship with my smartphone look like is actually the same solution in principle to what does a healthy relationship with the dunya look like. But it's highly concentrated, so it's going to be hard. I mean, look, we have difficulty just managing dunya. So it's not surprising, based on my thesis here, that we have that much more difficulty dealing with our devices. By the way, now something really, really important, I want everybody just to focus for 1 second. Keep in mind that when we're talking about dunya, what are we talking about? When I say to you guys dunya, do you have a positive connotation or do you have a negative connotation? Raise your hand if positive. Okay, mashallah, Allahu Akbar. Raise your hand if negative. Okay. Somebody who said positive, can you tell me why? Yes. So the basic understanding of why we're here, right? We're here to do good deeds. We sow them in the afterlife. We can't do that if there's no dunya. Allah put us here in this place of multiple things and distractions and all the different things that happen for a very great purpose. Actually, you cannot know who is Allah without this dunya. You cannot get closer to Allah without this dunya. You cannot know the beauty of Allah without seeing a beautiful sunset or a sunrise. You cannot know the gentleness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without experiencing the gentleness of your mother. You cannot know the severity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without seeing terrible things that happen in the world. Those things that are not related to human beings, what they do. Everything is from Allah ultimately. The point is that we know Allah through this dunya. We have no other thing to know Him by. We have no other way to do our deeds. We need this. But yet, even though that's true, most of you had a negative connotation. Why? Because Allah and His Messenger ﷺ warn us again and again about it. So when I'm going to go through this presentation, I'm going to present to you a whole bunch of things about digital devices and their effect, and I just want to prove to you that it's the same thing as dunya, but just a more concentrated version. The reason I'm going over these aspects of these devices is not because we shouldn't use them. It's because in order to use it properly, you have to know what its fallbacks are so that you can avoid them, exactly like dunya. We have to use dunya properly. Just take whatever you need and just leave the rest. And that's exactly how we need to think about these devices, really. Just use it for whatever minimal you need and leave the rest. That's the philosophy, okay? Now, these four things, temporariness of the dunya, it exercises the short-term or the instant gratification muscle. I'm going to go into these in detail. It deceives. It looks like there's something here, but actually there's nothing here, right? Like this dunya is going to be done like this. And when we're inshallah ta'ala in Jannah, the dunya is going to seem like a flicker that just came into existence and then vanished in 1 second, right? So then that's something that just appeared and then disappeared. It barely even existed. It's the same thing with like on the screen. You have images that appear and disappear. Very transitory, very quick. Another factor is it deceives. You think you got an A-, but actually you got a C+. I'm going to explain what I mean by this. It draws us towards multiplicity. It breaks our attention and our ability to focus on the one thing, capital O, capital T. This relates to the attention economy. You guys must have heard this phrase. And it pulls you in. Okay, look at this study. This is to show you that just like the dunya tries to get us to sacrifice the long-term goal of Jannah for short-term gain, that is exactly what these devices do. So this is a study, Likes and Impulsivity, investigating the relationship between actual smartphone use and delay discounting. What's delay discounting? Delay discounting is this observation that human beings have a habit that if they're told, I'll give you $50 right now, or if you wait 1 week, I'll give you $60. Most will just take the 50. But then they've done all these studies, right, because that's what they do, they like to study everything. They've done all these studies to see, well, what are the factors that influence somebody to do more delayed discounting or do less? Meaning they're more likely to hold off and get the long-term reward, or more likely to just go for the short-term gain. So this study, it says, looking at the relationship between actual smartphone use and delayed discounting. Meaning, whoever uses phones, however much they use it, is there a relationship that those who use their devices more, they tend to adopt the short-term gains over the long-term gains more? The reason why they say actual smartphone use is because there's already, prior to this study, dozens of studies that show that this is the case. But they're all based on subjective reports of the people. They ask the people, how do you feel, and these sorts of things. But in this case, this was the first time where they actually just like, when Apple came out with this thing where the battery actually tells you how much battery usage and how much screen time for each app, so they could factor out things like Google Maps and, you know, making a phone call and all of those things, so they could just get down to the actual apps that people use and actually see what happens. So I don't know if you can read that, but I'm just going to read a few things. It says, first studies have indicated a positive association between smartphone usage and discounting of future rewards, meaning they value those future rewards less. They found in prior studies that heavier engagement with the phone was positively correlated with an individual's discounting rate and greater impulsivity. That high and medium smartphone users in their sample more often chose a smaller immediate reward than low users. They also then found the same thing in their results. We found a significant negative correlation between the proportion of choices of larger delayed rewards and net screen time, indicating that the more time is actively spent on a smartphone, the less likely that individual is to wait for a larger reward. I want something to be really clear here. They're not looking at, was this person using WhatsApp for a good reason, or was this person using WhatsApp for a bad reason? Was this person using WhatsApp for khidmah of deen, or was this person using WhatsApp to have an illicit relationship, na'udhu billah? They're not looking at that. They're just looking at sheer use. That's it. Just using it. And it's not just WhatsApp and all the other things. So what they're finding in this, just to summarize it, we also found that self-control was negatively associated with net screen time, while all other relationships turned out to be non-significant. So, increased net screen time, and net screen time is because they factored out, like, you know, they just kept the phone on while they were listening to a lecture, they factored out Google Maps, they factored out all those other things, results in increase of choosing, that should say, short-term over long-term. Now, keep in your mind, don't separate, we shouldn't separate in our minds religious knowledge and secular knowledge. When you see this, that this increases choosing short-term over long-term, what's the ultimate long-term goal? What's the ultimate long-term reward? It's Jannah, the Akhirah, Allah's presence, the presence of the awliya, the presence of the prophets in the Akhirah. That is the same psychology that psychology is embedded in us. So what we're learning from this study is that these devices actually, when we use them, they increase our, they kind of tune our psychology more towards short-term gain. And that's a problem for us, because constantly in the dunya we are trying to not do short-term gain over long-term. We're trying to always keep the long-term, the akhirah, in our mind. So when we use this, it reverses that. And we've seen this, you know, like Facebook, you could write, like, you know, an essay, and X, you can only write so many characters, and then Instagram, let's just forget that, just do pictures. And then you have YouTube, and that goes to TikTok, and then you know, they realize they needed to introduce YouTube Shorts, right? Like everything goes towards more quick, transitory, temporary. Everything heads in that direction. That's the nature of this. Why is it that they make more money off of this? Why is it YouTube came out with their YouTube Shorts? Because they wanted to compete with TikTok. Why was TikTok so successful? Because they hit something that these people were ready for to receive, which is they've all been primed by the last decade of phone screen use, social media use, etc. So physical dunya pulls us to favoring the temporary, the transient. Digital interface does exactly the same thing. It does the exact same thing. Okay, let's go on to deception. Now, what do you guys think? Raise of hands, do you think that there is, tell me if you think reading a physical book is the same as reading a book on a screen, let's say on this laptop or on your phone? Who feels it's 10 out of 10 reading a book physically and 10 out of 10 reading on the screen? Hands. Okay, few people. Who feels that it's more like, probably like 7 out of 10 if you're reading on a screen and 10 out of 10 on a physical book? More like. Anybody think less? Few people think less. So I want to show you, I used to think this. I used to think it's probably like 7 out of 10. Real book, physical book is 10 out of 10, right? And screen reading is 7 out of 10. So I want to, after I saw these studies, I came to the conclusion it's more like 4 out of 10. And this is why it's deceptive. Because you think it's 7 out of 10, but it's actually 4 out of 10. So think about this. If you thought that you were getting a lower quality product, right? You would probably feel like you need to do something extra to get the higher quality product, right? But if you think that you got a higher quality product, you'll never make the effort to actually get the higher quality product. Because you thought you got it already, right? So I believe it's the same thing for reading, for learning on the internet, and also for relationships on the internet. And I'm going to show you why I think that. So here's eye tracking software of somebody who's reading a physical book. This is a physical book. They just took the picture of it and put it on the internet. So the circles are where the eyes stop, and the dashes are when the eyes move. And you can see that it's pretty orderly, okay? So now they put the same eye tracking software on people who are looking at, reading on the internet, and this is what it looks like. Okay? You guys hear that sound from the audience? Yeah. That's a 4 out of 10 sound. That's what that is. So I don't think anybody can tell me that reading is 7 out of 10. I mean, that looks pretty 4 out of 10-y to me. Okay? You can skip that. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say for reading. I actually can tell you 2, 3 more studies, but for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead. Deep learning, now learning also. Okay, we spend a lot of time learning on the internet. Okay? Deep learning uses long-term memory. Our long-term memory as human beings, we're from Silicon Valley, okay? Everybody over there thinks that the human brain is just like a computer. Long-term memory is not like a hard drive of a computer. You just put some information on it, and then you retrieve it, and it's exactly the same information than when you put it. Long-term memory of a human being, it organizes into patterns of knowledge, and that gives depth and richness to our thinking. We are an organic, soulful creature. We're not just like a tub of information that you take information, and it doesn't come out the same as it went in. I'm not talking about fidelity. I'm not talking about that when we memorize it, it comes out incorrectly. I'm saying that when you memorize something and it becomes part of your long-term memory, it becomes part of you, and it becomes part of your knowledge, and it connects organically with other things that you learn in ways that computers simply can't do. Our intellectual prowess is derived largely from the patterns of knowledge we have acquired over long periods of time. So long-term memory is the foundation of who we are, how we learn, and how deeply we think. So you guys have seen this, like short-term memory, working memory, and long-term memory. Short-term memory is like if I'm just in this room and I remember that the projector is over here. And when I go out over there and I'm not in the room anymore, I still remember that there's a projector in here and there's some people in here. That's short-term memory. And then long-term memory is long-term memory. And then working memory is in between. Working memory, you can only hold about 4 chunks of information in your working memory. That would be like I'm trying to remember to do something, and I'm trying to remember like 4 or 5 steps. I'm supposed to do this, then I'm supposed to do this, then I'm supposed to do this, then I'm supposed to do this. If you don't use like tactics, like making a story or visualizations or things like this, your mind can really, in working memory, only hold this. They've studied this number, they debate it, but they say it's about 4. But that's working memory. The capacity of long-term memory is infinite. It's unlimited. There's no limit. So what happens how do we go from working memory to long-term memory? It's a process that cognitive scientists call encoding. Right? This process of going from working memory to long-term memory. You have to go from short to working to long-term. In order to do that, you need sustained attention. You need sustained attention. And this, my dear brothers and sisters, is not sustained attention. Okay? So if these notifications are coming to you while you're trying to do anything, then I'm not saying you're not going to benefit. But you will think that you're benefiting more than you actually are, and you will therefore put less effort in accordingly. That's dangerous. It's dangerous to not know exactly what's going on with yourself when you're learning, right? And remember, this is also, you think you're reading, I don't know what that is. What about the fact that there are studies that show that carefully planned lessons that incorporate audio and visual instructions can enhance students' learning, and that digital instruction can also enhance students' learning? Yes, there are studies like that. But the problem is the vast majority of digital consumption is not carefully planned lessons. Okay, how about this? We have a writing assignment. I want you to write about the last typewriter factory. Okay, so I found this article, I'm going to read it. But while I'm reading it, do you desire to read about this? You see there's a hyperlink over there. That hyperlink, it's as good as a person standing next to you and asking you this question while you're reading. Because that's how your brain thinks about it. That's how your brain does it. So when you're reading through and you read the hyperlink, on functional MRI studies, they can actually see the brain of a person who is reading a hyperlinked text versus the brain of a person who's just reading a physical text. The two one looks like it's problem solving, and the other one looks like it's reading. So here, it's like the person is saying, while they're reading, somebody is saying to them, do you desire to read about this? Or do you desire to read about this? Or do you desire to learn about any of these other things? Or do you want to subscribe? Or do you want to see what this cat is all about? It looks very interesting. It's sitting in the thing, and it says storyteller. Or do you want to register for whatever that is? So that's happening constantly while you're reading. You think you're just reading, but there's a lot of other stuff going on. That is not the kind of sustained attention that we need for proper education and deep learning. So attention, we think we're learning a certain amount, not as much. And this has been shown in studies. This is a very reputable journal, Science, Technology and Informal Education, What is Taught, What is Learned. I'm going to read this word for word. I want everybody to look at this, okay? Formal education must adapt to these changes, the digital changes, taking advantage of new strengths in visual spatial intelligence and compensating for new weaknesses in higher order cognitive processes. What are they? Abstract vocabulary, mindfulness, reflection, inductive problem solving, critical thinking, and imagination. Like minor things. These develop through the use of older technology. Reading, which along with audio and media such as radio, also stimulates imagination. So this is what, in science, you guys know this journal? This is very reputable. So my point is, I'm not just giving you theory, that people who are much smarter than me are writing this, are backing this up. So just as a side note, because this is not really about how to educate ourselves in the digital world, the general rule of thumb with education and digital stuff is it's a pinch of salt in the dough, right? If you put too much salt in the dough, it ruins it. It has to be carefully designed, thoughtful, and small supplemental amounts. But that's a topic for another day. Another way in which this thing is deceptive is that it makes us think that we have good relationships. Now, yes, of course, we can be in touch with people across the world. But then the question we want to ask is, what do we not do in those relationships because we think we're in touch with them through WhatsApp? Maybe we don't make efforts in other ways. We don't make efforts in other ways. And there's other things as well. So this word technoference, has anybody heard of this? This is actually now, there's dozens and dozens of articles on technoference, technological interference in relationships. Heavy parent digital technology use has been associated with suboptimal parent-child interactions, but no studies examine associations with child behavior specifically. Maternal technoference, meaning mom or dad is, the child is there and I'm guilty, okay, I'm guilty, all right? Maternal technoference predicted both mothers' and fathers' reports of child externalizing and internalizing behaviors. Externalizing behaviors are problematic behaviors that relate to when the child is acting up, running around and just being a mischievous, etc. And internalizing problematic behaviors are emotional issues. So there was clear association there. Results suggest that technological interruptions are associated with child problem behaviors, but we need to do more studies, essentially. Here is Brigham Young University, very well-known university. They talk about the relationship between, they call FTFI. They love this, acronyms that they have. FTFI means face-to-face interaction. Face-to-face interaction. Phone conversations between partners affects face-to-face interaction and can lead to more relationship conflict. Partners with face-to-face interaction can have higher levels of happiness and satisfaction. Look at all the citations they have after that. Interruptions are linked with more conflicts in relationships. So the mere fact that there's interruptions, looking at the device, looking at the phone, not being present-minded, compare this to the Prophet ﷺ, who would not just do face-to-face, but body-to-body. He would turn his whole person, his whole being to face the person, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when somebody spoke to him or called to them. So physical dunya deceives regarding its benefits, and the digital interface also deceives regarding its interface. Regarding its benefits. Okay, so we're going going to talk about how it attracts. I don't know about you, but I don't have a TV in my home, but some of these HD TVs, when you go into the store, they're so vivid that like they look more colorful and more like attractive than like actual real life. Like I just feel like my regular eyes are just like useless after looking at one of those things. Like really, and you can't take your eyes off of it. And I feel that. I don't know, you feel this? I mean, I see this. Okay, and then forget, okay, A to B testing. So all these multi-billion-dollar companies, Google, Shoogle, and Facebook, and all these people, right? They're constantly doing this to us without us knowing. You guys know about A/B testing? So they'll put one color, like a lighter shade of blue and a darker shade of blue, and then they'll see how many people do clicks on that. And they keep on doing that, just like it has here. And they do that all why? So they can decide and see exactly what shade of red will get somebody to click more. Don't you want to click on that subscribe button? I want to click, right? Look at this depressed baby. He's like born yesterday, and he's got like bags under his eyes. So bizarre. Like even his cheeks are like sagging into the thing, you know? But that's how we look. Okay? So the physical dunya pulls you in, the digital interface pulls you in. Remember the hadith of the Prophet, the dunya is sweet and green, meaning it's attractive to the eyes. Okay, this is an interesting one. The dunya draws our attention to multiplicity, and the digital devices do the same thing. So, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us here. Allah is one. And Allah created us for only the purpose of knowing Him and loving Him and being with Him. That's the only reason He created us. But yet, He created us in this world of not one, billions of things, quadrillion atoms and trees and people and activity. And through that multiplicity, we're supposed to turn our attention from it to Allah. That's actually the purpose of all of this stuff and of each other. So that we see Allah, we turn our attention from the multiplicity of this world to the oneness of Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to teach us how to do that. So these du'as that we say all the time, you know, when you're putting on your clothes, Alhamdulillahi ladhi kasani hadha, you know, praise be to the one who clothed me with this. Or when you're, you know, getting off in your car, driving in the car, Subhanalladhi sakharna hadha wa ma kunna lahu muqrinin wa inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun. Inna ila rabbina lamunqalibun. You're sitting in your car, you're going someplace, you're thinking about where you're coming from, where you're going, but then when you do this dua, your mind, your attention is shifted from all of those things to the fact that you're returning to Allah. Adhab al-ba's rabban nas, washfi anta shafi la shifa illa shifa'uk. Do away with the harm, O Lord of the people. You're turning your attention from sickness, from how you feel, from multiplicity to the one, to Allah. All praises for Allah. Alhamdulillah alladhi at'amana wa saqana wa ja'alana muslimin. The food, the drink, the billions of particles of rice, and maybe not billions, maybe for me, but you know, all those particles of rice, all those things, all the delicious different things that you just ate. This one was good, and that one was good, and this one was good. But then after all of that, you turn your attention to the one. This is the purpose of our life. Now, when we have our phone, we wake up first thing in the morning, and we pick up our device, and we open up our WhatsApp, right? Now, I just want you to imagine that all the people that are on your WhatsApp group lists, like when you open them, they're all in your bedroom when you open it. Like, would you ever, like before phones existed, like would you ever wake up first thing and talk to like 50 people, one after the other, before you even get out of bed? Like, it's like totally unthinkable, but yet we do it all the time. Now we do it all the time. So like you will hear, and if you don't hear about it tomorrow, but you will read in the books, if you haven't read already, what is the effect of mixing with people? What's the effect of mixing with people? This is called suhbah. So I mean, and you know, again, mashallah, everybody here, probably everybody, all the people who are on our respective WhatsApp or Telegram or Signal or whatever groups, they're all, mashallah, probably wonderful people, but still, it's mixing with people. That's time when we're supposed to be talking with Allah, not talking to people. There are certain sacred times that the phone should just, devices should just be no. Because it's not the time to talk to creation, it's time to talk to Allah. First thing when we wake up in the morning, an hour, that first morning, from tahajjud to ishraq, no phone. Hour or two before we go to sleep, that's the time when the Prophet ﷺ would barely even talk to his family. Sometimes he would just talk to, you know, Aisha radiallahu anha, but generally the sunnah was not to speak or not to do something after Isha. You're just with Allah, right? After Salah is the time of dua. Before Salah, between the adhan and iqamah, is a time of accepted dua. It's the time when Allah, the creator of the heavens and the earth, is saying, oh my slave, make dua to me, because I've informed you through my messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam that I accept the duas at this time. So are we going to take out our phone between the adhan and the iqamah? So like these should be hard stops in our mind. These should all be hard stops. Not before Salah, not after Salah, not until I'm done with all of my adhkar. Because shaitan will come, right? We know there's specific shayateen that are assigned to come right after Salah and remind you of all the things that you have to do. And this is going to happen through the phone, I can guarantee you that. Not before you go to sleep, not before we wake up, certainly not in the bathroom. Like, so everything that somebody texts in the bathroom, the angels have to come in. You're making the angels come in to write what you're saying. Like, that's all going to be displayed on the Day of Judgment. May Allah have mercy on us. Now, there's all these studies that actually show that there's a relationship between, subhanAllah, this is amazing. I didn't actually put all these studies here. There's a whole bunch of studies that show that there's a relationship between repeated breaking of attention and anxiety and depression. Somebody in this audience tell me why. Somebody in this audience tell me why. Why would it be that psychologically, when you have multiple breaks in attention, that results in depression and anxiety? Somebody tell me. I've already given you the answer already, but if you were paying attention. Yes? Yeah, that you could, yes, you're just engaging in desire, but you can go deeper. Yes. Overstimulated will make your body, your system kind of stressed out, so that will definitely impact. Yes. They're not focused on the one. Our psychology, our brain, our psychology is designed by Allah. Our body, our soul, our psychology is designed for fulfilling the function of وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I have not created man and jinn for any reason other than to worship me, to know me, to draw closer to me, to be with me forever in Jannah, in bliss. This is why Allah has created us. So therefore, He has made our physical body, our soul, our psychology, our brain, and everything about us perfectly configured for that purpose. So it's very clear proof that when we simply just repeatedly shift our attention from one thing to another, to another, to another, to another, to another, to another, and none of those things is Allah, then we get depressed. We get anxious. And this is exactly what we see. And this is not just attention shifting, but this is mixing with people. This is an epidemic. What you're seeing here, US teens with major depression. Many of the sociologists and psychologists in the country agree that they have tied this huge increase in depression, anxiety, and suicide attempts in teens in the United States to the onset of social media becoming prevalent and phones becoming prevalent. And it's going to take decades to make it established. It took us like 30 years from the time that we suspected smoking was bad for you to the time that we had enough evidence that it was bad. So if you want to wait another 30 years, then ahlan wa sahlan. But like if we want to use revelation and common sense and benefit from the whatever is there, then we can do that. But this is teens, this is real stuff. People are suffering. They're getting depressed, they're getting anxious. And he said literally every study we can find, we can't find studies that say anything different, that it's tied to this increase in depression, increase in anxiety. So this dunya increases our distraction from Allah, turns our attention. I was trying to find a symbol for somebody being distracted. Turning his head and then, from here to here. Direction, I don't know, I try. Direction from Allah, distraction from Allah, depression, and also the digital interface does the exact same thing. This is what the dunya does, that's what the digital interface does. So this is good news, everybody. This is good news because we have like books written on how to deal with the dunya. We know that. It would be a good project for somebody from DarusSalam to look at the collections of ahadith that relate to the dunya. Go through all those hadith. I guarantee you, inshallah, you will find a solution to this problem of digital and how we deal with it. You will find it in all of those hadith. And then inshallah you can produce it and like give it to everybody, and then everybody will inshallah see the truth of the deen. Okay? So we've spoken about, I hope I have convinced you that it's productive to think about the digital devices that we use in this way. They have these salient features that the dunya has. And the studies show that that's what they do, which is exactly what the dunya does. It exercises and increases our instant gratification muscle, which makes us value the now over the long term. It deceives us into thinking we're getting something more than what we're getting, so we don't make as much effort as we need to. It breaks our attention constantly and exercises the muscle of just looking at multiple things and being distracted and mixing with people, and it pulls you in. Brothers and sisters, keep in mind, I have not spoken at all in this entire lecture so far about the content on these phones. Did you notice that? I haven't spoken about the content. I'm just speaking about the medium, the technology itself. Now, I'm not talking about haram images or videos or, I haven't even talked about that. But the use of the device, so again, I'm not trying to say we have to stop using them, because I wouldn't say that. That's not what that's not my whole thesis here. I'm saying we need to think about it just like we think about the dunya. I don't want to touch this thing except what's necessary. And yes, it's a great tool, but let me use it exactly what I have intended it for and not anything else. But we can take a warning, my dear brothers and sisters. We can take a warning. How easy or not is it to not be distracted by the dunya? It's like our life's work. So if this thing is concentrated dunya, that's saying a lot. Okay, what is the nafs then? Because we talked about now what is this digital interface. But now we know that this is like a concentrated dunya. So if we understand what the nafs is and what its relationship with the dunya is supposed to be, then we should be able to understand what the relationship between our nafs and this thing is supposed to be. So what is the nafs? There's two ways to understand it. There's two ways this word is used. One is just you translate it as soul, which doesn't have a negative connotation. Okay? But then the other one, which I think people are more familiar with, is the lower desires. And that has obviously a negative connotation. Is those desires that are just our own thing that want to pull us in whatever direction that we want, in accordance with whatever we want, and not in accordance with the hukm of Allah, not in accordance with the Sharia or the Sunnah. So I want to talk about it from both these perspectives. So we need to go over a little bit of human anatomy. Okay? So the first part of human anatomy, because remember, we need to use all evidence available, right? We're Muslims. We use all evidence available, not just a little bit, not just a trillion pieces of the puzzle, which just tells you about all the neurons in the brain, and nobody really knows how thought happens and all that stuff because they want to deny soul, right? And then they call it the hard problem of consciousness. That's still what they call it. So we have to, if we take into account all of evidence, then we know that we have a ruh. This thing is pure. This creation of Allah is pure, and we don't know too much about it, but we know it's something magnificent, and it's our essence. It's who we are. And then we have our jism, our body, our brain and bones and lungs and heart. And then we have this nafs between them. And it has features both of the ruh and features of the jism. And then we have this thing called aql, which is this wonderful light that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed in our heart that has a very important function, which we're going to get to shortly. I'm sure you all already know this. But here's the really important thing for us to remember about ourselves. We are from Jannah originally. So that means that the athar or the traces or the effects of Jannah are going to be on us. You know, like if somebody's from China or somebody's from Pakistan or India and they come to the US, right? As soon as you hear them talk, you know, oh, okay, this guy's from India, this guy's from China. You know, he has an accent. He's eating this kind of food. He has these kinds of behavior. This is what the people who come from that land, this is how they are, right? So just like that, our homeland is Jannah. This is Adam alayhi salam. This is where we are from. And Jannah is unending. Jannah is eternal. It's created, but it's eternal. And it's completely dependent on Allah, but it's eternal. So what that means is the nafs desire is also unending, because that's where we come from. This is not your nafs's fault. It's not our nafs's fault that it just always wants stuff all the time and never stops. It's just a little bit stupid. It doesn't know that this is dunya. That's what the aql is for, to tell it. But the nafs desire is unending, because that's where we're from. We're from a place that is unending. Therefore, it will never, ever be satiated by the temporal things of this world. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the son of Adam, if he has a mountain of gold, he will want another mountain of gold. And if you give him another mountain of gold, he will want another mountain of gold. And he will not be satisfied until he's in the grave and his mouth is full of dust. It just doesn't stop, because that's where our nafs is. We are from there. What is the thing that can satisfy an unending desire? Only something that is unending. But we also have a jism. And this jism is of this earth, is of this dunya. And so it is involved in all the multiple things of this world. So what you have is you have a potent combination. So the jism, what's going on now? It's going backwards. Hold on, sorry. So the jism is characterized, just like the nafs is characterized by this unending desire, the jism in which the nafs is also part of, the nafs also has the effects of the jism in it. This jism also, it just what? Temporal things. Temporal, multiple things. So what we have is human beings who have like an unending desire for the stuff of this world. That's our situation. Because we have the athar of the ruh, and we have the athar of jism in this nafs. But the only thing that is going to satisfy this unending desire of the nafs is the one who is unending and beginningless. And that is why it is only the remembrance of Allah, Allah bi dhikrillah tatma'innul qulub, that is the only thing that's going to satisfy this. There is nothing else that's going to satisfy our soul. Nothing of this world can do it. Only the remembrance of Allah can do it. Because Allah is eternal, and He's the only one that can. He has made us this way. So, the best way to conceive of the nafs in a productive way, I think, is to think of it as your horse that takes you to Allah. Okay, but there's levels of nafs, as the Quran mentions. So the lowest level of nafs is nafs al-amara bis-su. So you are the rider, and your nafs is the horse. And the way it's supposed to work is you're supposed to get on the horse and you're supposed to train it so that it obeys you. But at the lowest level of the nafs, the untrained level of the nafs, this is the situation. This is the person. So I don't know if you guys know, but in horse riding, the horse feels you. The horse feels your confidence. If you are not strong in yourself and if you are not confident, the horse will just do whatever it wants. I took my kids to horse riding lessons, and in the beginning, they would sit on the horse, and it was as if they weren't even there. Just go over here, eat from over here, eat from over there, just walk around. They could hit it. They could do whatever they wanted. It wouldn't listen. Because they themselves internally were weak. Once they started getting used to it, the teacher taught them, okay, no, like, encourage it, and take the stick and hit it a little bit on the back. Encourage it. Pull up on the rein. Restrain it. Do this, do that. Now, the horse slowly started listening. Now their confidence started building. So once their confidence started building, now the horse was listening. Now when they kick the heel, now the horse goes. So in Nafs al-Amara bis-Su, this is the person, they're so internally weak, their nafs just takes them for a ride, like this guy. This person, he misses his prayers, he does whatever, these are they're not Muslim. They cuss at people, they steal, they rob, they do whatever. They don't really have any regret. They don't have any regret. Then you have the next level up, which is Nafs al-Lawama. So this is now the horse is getting a little bit more trained, but there's still moments where the rider is not strong and the rider is weak. And the horse senses that, and the horse, okay, I have a chance. Tries to throw him off. So this is this person, they know what is the right thing, they know what is the good thing, they're doing the right thing, but once in a while they make a mistake, they slip, they fall, then they feel regret. Then they make tawbah, then they get back up, and they keep on going. So this is a praiseworthy state. This is a praiseworthy state, but it's not the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is the next one. Okay? This is nafs al-mutma'inna. This horse is only going exactly where the rider is telling it to go. The rider completely regulates the nafs desires, the nafs not going to throw him off, and the nafs is going to take the rider wherever he wants to go. So now you're in charge. Nafs says, I don't want to get out of bed, it's too warm and cozy. In fact, the nafs kind of just like stops saying it after a while. It'll always say something, it'll always complain, but it knows it's never going to get its way. Because, he's going to get up for Fajr, and I'm like, can't do anything about it. He's going to get up and he's going to go, he's going to make wudu and he's going to go outside. He'll still complain, but the rider's in charge, so the nafs just complies. So this is where we ask Allah for this. The rider wants to go to Allah, and the nafs takes him. This is a positive conception of this is what we want to do. This is how we want to think of our nafs. We need to feed it just enough, take care of it, But ultimately, we need to restrain it. And this is the job of the aql. The aql is the trainer. The aql is the thing that stops the nafs from when its desire is saying, I want to do this thing. And the aql says, no, that's haram, that's not good for you, don't do that. And then you listen to your aql, and you don't do that. That's what the job of the intellect is. Now, remember these symbols. The little wolf thing is symbolic for the deceptive aspect of the dunya, and that the Lord of the Rings ring is for the attraction aspect of the dunya, right? So what they do is they stun the aql if you're not careful. Because they fool the aql into thinking that this thing is more valuable than it actually is if they don't have ilm. And the Lord of the Rings ring, the attraction, it just, it stuns it. But the real issue is the fact that the nafs is always attracted to these temporary things in an unending fashion. The job ultimately is to turn our attention away. I'm going to go through, inshallah, because it's getting late. So what I've tried to show you is that if we apply our knowledge of revelation, we'll see that the dunya is characterized by multiple temporary things that are constantly attracting us and constantly trying to distract us. And the phone does exactly that, but it just does it in a more concentrated form. That's literally all it is. And the job of our aql is to tell our nafs, no, don't do that. It's not good for you. And we listen to it and we progress. But remember I said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made every single aspect of us perfectly configured to draw closer to Him? So I want to share with you something, and this will be the last kind of segment. I want to share with you something that is really amazing that I learned that shows some details of how Allah has literally put a mechanism in us as human beings to make sure that we don't get deluded by this place. And inshallah, as we go through this, it will help us we'll be able to apply this principle to our issues that we have with these devices. So you've heard of dopamine, right? what have we been talking about all night? We've been talking about how this dunya, i.e. these phones, which are more concentrated versions, are constantly distracting us and constantly pulling our desires in a direction away from Allah. Every hyperlink is a desire. I desire to click on it, I clicked on it, I got my result. Every swipe of the phone, every tap of the app, I did something, I got what I wanted. I did something, I got what I wanted. I did something, I got what I wanted. There's a desire, there's a pleasure in this. That's what this is all about. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says this world is mata'ul ghurur. It's this deceptive pleasure. It's the pleasure of deception. So if we want to understand, if everything I'm saying here is right, then we should be able to see evidence of it at every level, in the human being as well. So if we study something about pleasure and dopamine, we should see something that will give us some insight. So I read this book by Anna Lemke. She's a psychiatrist from Stanford, and she wrote this book, Dopamine Nation, and then this other book about addiction. It's a whole different topic, but this is too long already, so we're not going to be going into that too much. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, so your nerves in the brain, they have little spaces between them called synapses, which you see here. And subhanAllah, the electricity doesn't go just from one nerve directly to the other. They're not touching. There's actually a tiny little space between them. And the electric conduction comes down from the top, for example, releases these little vesicles, and then those dopamine chemicals, or whatever chemicals there are, there's many others as well, they cross that little space, they attach to those receptors at the bottom that you see there, and then that initiates the next electric conduction. That happens in fractions of seconds. And subhanAllah, we used to think that this was like a binary switch, like a 0 and a 1, these little synapses, these little connection points. But they've done now studies, they actually realize that the complexity of this junction here is actually like the equivalent of one computer microprocessing chip, like one CPU. And we have 3 trillion of these in our head. So like my Mac, this computer probably has 2 or 3. My computer has 4. Some have 8. 3 trillion. And this is not a computer. But, it's something immense, subhanAllah. Anyway, dopamine is involved in our feeling motivated or driven to do something to obtain something that we want or need. And it involves special pathways of connections of nerve cells in our brain. And so dopamine and desire and pain and pleasure, they all work together. For a rat in a box, whom they are, unfortunately experimenting on, chocolate will increase dopamine release by 55%. Intimacy by 100%, nicotine by 150%, cocaine by 225%, amphetamines by 1,000%. Want or desire is associated with an increase in dopamine levels. So just a really important point, especially for anybody who's in science or medicine, the dopamine, it's not the dopamine and then that's what makes us desire something. Our soul desires something, and then these changes happen in our brain. And yes, it's all connected, but the soul is primary. So anyway, the dopamine is associated with focus, attention, and movement. And there's reasons for that. We're going to skip over that right now. This is a really important point here. Pleasure and pain in the human being is processed basically by the same overlapping brain regions and pathways. Pleasure and pain. They work with dopamine, and they work in the same pathways to the body. Isn't that amazing? And they work like an opposing balance. So what does that mean? By the way, she mentions in the book that when she says pleasure, she means, pleasure really means that the thing is in accordance with the way that I desire. Things are the way that I want. That's what pleasure is. Because there are people that they actually get pleasure from pain. There are people like that because they have a certain meaning that they have ascribed to that pain, and so they actually get pleasure from that. So the asl of pain and pleasure is actually ultimately desire, the root of it. So when we say pleasure here, we're really meaning things are in accordance with the way that I desire. And when we say pain, what we really mean is things are not the way that I desire. That's what they're referring to here. So pain and pleasure in our brain, they said, works like a balance. So this is what she was mentioning. This is her conversation with other psychiatrists, and this is kind of their latest research, okay? It was published a year ago. So pleasure on one side and pain on the other side. So let's see. The nature of this pain-pleasure balance is equilibrium. It automatically counteracts whichever side you push on to keep things in balance. So what does that mean? Is that if you have some chocolate and that's a pleasurable experience, that's going to push down on the pleasure side of the balance. But because the pain-pleasure balance operates in the same pathways and they work like a balance that needs to constantly keep equilibrium, as soon as you experience that pleasure, the pain side is going to be activated to counterbalance it so that it can restore it back to the neutral state. And that's why your pleasure stops. So your pleasure, you have the pleasure of having the chocolate, and then because of this counterbalance in the brain, now it's gone back. The body pushes, the brain it pushes back to keep that balance. So you see this curve, it goes up, this time is on the x-axis, and it goes up, right? It goes up across like that, and comes down when the balance is hit. Now, same thing with if you push on the pain side. You push on, you have a painful experience, somebody pricks you, or something happens that you don't like, the body will push back to stop. That's why your pain doesn't start and then just go on unendingly. You have pain and then it stops. Now, what do we experience? Anytime we experience something that is painful or not in accordance with our desire, we have a built-in mechanism that stops that pain from being experienced permanently. So pain due to this built-in balance will always be short. But what if we want more and more pleasure? So we keep on pushing down, we get more and more chocolate, and so we push down really, really hard on this side. So what is the brain going to do? It's going to push down really hard on the other side. But because we've pushed down so much, and I'm giving you an example of just having a lot, don't imagine that somebody's just sitting down and just eating like a whole bowl of chocolate. But imagine that they eat chocolate, and then they eat something else, and then they look at their phone, and then it's constant pleasure, constant things in accordance with the desire. So we're pushing down that, pushing down on that, pushing down. Eventually the brain says, whoa, okay, this guy's going overboard. So I have to balance this out. And since the pleasure is not stopping and I need to keep this balance, it's as if it puts a weight on the pain side. Because it's anticipating that this guy's going to keep on going like this. So it puts a weight down. But now look at the balance. It's chronically weighted to the pain side. Yes, right? Now it's chronically weighted to that pain side. You have this really unpleasant feeling and you really want more of that thing that you wanted. Whatever it was, whether it's chocolate, whether it's an image that we're not supposed to look at, whatever it is, whether it's just, scrolling, doom scrolling, right? So we do it even harder now because now we're feeling really bad. But we're feeling bad because the pleasure that we were doing excessively has caused our brain to chronically weight on the pain side. So we push really hard down again. More chocolate. Brain responds. Oh, okay, he's not stopping. I got to put another weight down. Now the balance tips chronically even more to the pain side. So now this person's chronic underlying state is one of unsettled feeling, pain, discomfort. They're just unhappy. So in other words, with repeated strong pushing on the pleasure side, our pain-pleasure balance gets weighted to the pain side to try to keep that balance. So there's repeated attempts at pleasure, and her main point in this book is that in our time, especially with these devices, we have so much of an influx of pleasure that this is what's happening to us. We are getting a chronic weight on the pain side, and this pain is an existential internal anguish. That's pain. So what happens is we end up in this state. We experience this chronic underlying sense of pain and dissatisfaction that things are not the way I want, which means this person may be having lots of pleasurable experiences. They have home, they have wife, they have car, they have food whenever they want, they have phone whenever they want, they have movies they watch, they do whatever they want to do, but they're chronically weighted to the pain side. So no matter what, they're constantly feeling this deep pain and unsatisfaction inside. And then they just crave that, whatever, they crave that thing that makes them feel how they used to feel before, right? Here's an interesting thing. The World Happiness Report, they surveyed 150,000 people in 26 countries. All the richer countries had higher rates of anxiety than the poorer ones. And they quote, the disorder is significantly more prevalent and impairing in the higher income countries than in the low or middle income countries. Because they have all the pleasure. They have all the pleasure. So they are all in this state that you see here on the screen. They're all in anxiety, they're all in depression, they're all mentally fragile. Because they have pleasured themselves into a chronic state of pain. And we can include ourselves in this, by the way, to a certain degree. Number of cases of depression increased by 50% worldwide. The highest increases were seen in the regions with the highest income, especially North America. Physical pain is also increasing. And I can tell you this because I see it every day at the hospital. Physical pain is also increasing, and the numbers of types of unexplained physical pain syndromes have grown. Complex regional pain syndrome, fibromyalgia, interstitial cystitis, myofascial pain syndrome, pelvic pain syndrome. These are all syndromes that doctors are like, oh, okay, this person's crazy. There's nothing physically wrong with them. We scan them, we do this, we do that. We can't find anything wrong with them. Yet there is something wrong. They are in internal anguish, and it's manifesting as physical pain. It's the reason why almost every single person who I admit to the hospital is on opioid pain medication. It is not chronic physical, it is chronic physical pain, but that physical pain is there because they have this deeper chronic underlying pain. That pain, where has it come from? It has come from having everything, all the time, whenever you want, however you want. When researchers asked the following question to people around the world, during the past 4 weeks, how often have you had bodily aches or pains? Never, seldom, sometimes, often, or very often. They found that Americans reported more pain than any other country. So the message is clear. Allah is giving us a very clear message. The more we try to make the pleasure of this world, this temporary world, the more our nafs, that has that unending desire, tries to keep on make that pleasure go more, 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 the more we will experience pain. It's an inner pain, it's a physical pain, it's a pain of a very deep dissatisfaction. Why? Because Allah has had mercy on His slaves. He has put this mechanism in every single human being that, oh my slave, I know you have this like unending desire in you for something. It's me, you have an unending desire. Don't do it for the dunya. Okay, I have put a mechanism in every single human being. The more you try to seek the pleasurable things of this life, excess go more, you will get depressed. You will hurt yourself. So that perhaps you will turn back. Because Allah didn't make us for this place, as we already established and as we already know. He made us for the eternal gardens of pleasure and His company. So He put this mechanism in all of us. And these devices are exactly that. Every single swipe is in accordance with my desire. Every single tap is in accordance with my desire. Every single thing that happens on that, it's designed for it to be in accordance with my desire. That is called pleasure. And the more we do that, the more we hit on that, the more our brain counterbalances to push down on the chronic pain side, to keep that balance. What if we just stop having the chocolate? Over time, it will reset. It's hard, it's not easy, but it does reset. And eventually, the person is able to then enjoy the simple things of this life again. They don't need to keep on having, whatever, 16 layers of chicken and, 5 different kinds of sauces on their fries for $20. Okay, but wait, what about the opposite? What if we press down on the pain side? So we push down, and we're not talking about causing ourselves physical pain. Remember, pain means not in accordance with one's desire. That's what pain is. So if you push down on the pain side, doing something that's not in accordance with my desire, meaning not in accordance with what my nafs wants of this dunya, then And so this is what it means, to give you some examples. What kinds of pain are we talking about? The nafs says, I don't want to study. And you say, too bad, we're doing it. The nafs says, but I don't want to exercise. And you say, quiet, we're going out. The nafs says, I want to look at that haram image. I'll just do it once. They say, no, I know you do, but it's not going to happen. The nafs says, but it's so cozy right now. And you say, yes, it is, but that means even more reward for making wudu and praying fajr. So you get up. This is pain. This is not in accordance with our desire. Our nafs is saying one thing. But it's so amazing what happens. You push down on that pain side. So what's going to happen? You tell me what should happen if you push down on the pain side. It's going to go to the other side. It's going to put weights to counterbalance on the pleasure side. It's going to do that. And, you kind of feel good. That felt pretty good, like I've been going pretty good. I haven't, looked at something I haven't for a month. I've been getting up, doing all my prayers. I've been going to the masjid for Fajr and Isha. I've been going and attending the majalis. I've been doing, and like even though it's hard, I've been doing it. And, it kind of feels good. And that motivates you. And so you keep on doing it. You do it more, the body says, oh, got to try to balance. So now it puts another weight down on the pleasure side. So you can see that, we'll go through here. We end up experiencing long-term underlying sense of contentment and satisfaction. This deep satisfaction and contentment. Why? Because we're simply going against our desires. Going against our desires in the way that Allah has told us to go against our desires. Not like I'm going to fast straight for 15 days, No. I'm just going to not eat haram things. Once I've got that down, I'll start fasting Mondays and Thursdays. This is the simple things, whatever Allah and His Messenger have taught us. Just those things. That's what trains your nafs. Getting up for Fajr trains your nafs. It's hard. Getting up in the morning, it's like 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, getting up, making wudu, going outside. It's Chicago, it gets cold here for like 6 months out of the year. Going out in that cold, that's pushing down on the pain side. Chronically, you will get weighted on the pleasure side. Every single haram desire that you have that aql come in and go, nope, we're not going to do that. Nope, nafs, the horse, pull that horse back. Nope, we're not going to do that. Whoa, right? That's painful. Yeah, it's painful. But you get rewarded even here. Never mind, we're not even talking about Jannah. But look at this, it's so beautiful. Look at this mechanism Allah has put in us. This long-term, long-lasting pleasure that you get because of what you're doing. So now we have this subtle desire to do those things that we used to consider painful or difficult because we know ultimately it brings a kind of pleasure or contentment or satisfaction. The principle applies physically as well. Intermittent fasting, which is going against your desire, has been shown to extend lifespan, increase resistance to age-related diseases, reduce blood pressure, increase heart rate variability. There's so many other benefits to fasting. There's so many benefits to restraining your thoughts. These people who do meditation, they have all these physical benefits. And what do you think we do in our salah? Our salah is not meditation. Our salah is much greater than meditation. But there is a component of that there. That every time your thought starts going off towards what I'm going to do after Maghrib, you bring your thoughts back to the meaning of the salah. You bring your thought back to Allah. You bring your thought back to the meaning, to the meaning of the salah. That movement away from what you're not supposed to be thinking about to Allah, that's also goes in this category of this kind of pain. And you get a lazzat, you get a pleasure out of that. But you have to do it again and again. Children that are affected with childhood viral illnesses have more robust immune systems and have lower incidences of heart disease and certain cancers. So again, even physically, even at the physical level, when we are afflicted with something, it builds us. So it's a spiritual thing, it's a mental thing, it's built into our neurobiology, it happens to us physically. Pushing down, going against our desires automatically tilts us towards chronic pleasure, chronic good feeling, chronic satisfaction, chronic chronic is not the right word, but you know what I mean. Long-term pleasure. So, the message is clear. We can talk about all the puzzle pieces, the neurons, the dopamine. We can talk about brain scans. We can talk about this pain-pleasure balance. She says herself, may Allah give her hidayat, science teaches us that every pleasure exacts a price. And the pain that follows is longer lasting and more intense than the pleasure that gave rise to it. But you can say the reverse also. It teaches us also that every pain gives something to you. And the pleasure that follows the pain is longer lasting and more intense than the pain that gave rise to it. So what are we seeing? Actually, in reality, we are seeing a manifestation of this hadith. That paradise, the ultimate long-term pleasure, is surrounded by difficulty. And hellfire, the ultimate pain, is surrounded by pleasure and desires. So this is literally just a manifestation of this hadith. So I want to now add, so this, we have to finish with this, that look at this ayat, look at these ayat. So verily with hardship comes utter ease. Verily with hardship comes ease. So when you finish the day's toil, worship until tired. Now let me ask you a question and see of your Lord all that you desire, Ya Allah. Why was this presentation called the staff of Musa alayhi salam? Can anybody think? We're near the end now. We didn't go to 1 o'clock. But there are 2 1s in the time right now. We're like just 5 slides left. I just want to, somebody tell me, why is it called the staff of Musa? Yes? Well, did he, alayhi salam, did he throw it? What are you talking about, by the way? What are you referring to? So everybody. His staff, right? Yeah?
Is it like navigating through the waters, trying to get to the end?
Yeah.
Getting a path for yourself?
Right, so you remember how I showed you when you have that balance, right? Another way to visualize that balance is like this, okay? So on the y-axis is the pleasure with the desire going up, okay? And on the x-axis here is you have your pain, it goes up, it comes down. The pain goes up, it comes down. The pain goes up, it goes down, okay? Now, what happens over time? The more you push on the pain, pleasure, the body weights it down until, I couldn't do this, guys. It was like very painful to do on PowerPoint, so forgive me. So eventually now, the pleasure, it's actually coming down into the negative. It's coming down into the pain side, right? So now you're getting chronically weighted down. So he's doing the same pleasurable thing, but it's not getting him what he used to get. And he's now, once you're down here, you're in this chronic pain situation, which is really unpleasant, which is, and that's what these phones do. But you can reverse it where you're constantly going against your nafs, going against your nafs, going against your nafs, and eventually, right, the waves, now they start going up, right? So now you're chronically up in the pleasure side. But what if you use your aql and you just like stop being a tool of your own desires? So something pleasurable, and then you stop. That stopping your pleasurable thing is painful. You made the choice to stop. Now I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do that. So that pushes you down. That's painful. That's a painful thing. And then, okay, now you enjoyed yourself. You did something, all permissible. You did something, but then you stopped yourself for the haram thing. And now maybe, instead of like having the triple layer chicken sauce thing, right? Or instead of, whatever that thing that you did was, now you're like, you know what, let me just have a banana. Right? Let me just have a banana. A little bit less pleasure, but it's just a little bit less. But then maybe there was something really you wanted to do that was wrong, haram, and it was really hard for you to stop yourself. That's why the stop sign is so big. It was really hard for you to stop yourself, but you stopped yourself. And it was painful, but you endured that pain. But now when you keep on doing that, look what happens, right? It goes up, right? It's going up above. And eventually, it requires less and less effort to stop it, because actually now you're going into a pleasurable state. So You see all these stop signs, this is your aql coming and saying to your nafs, okay, let's just hold on. Let's just stop. Let's just stop here. Let's just stop here. So if you keep on doing that, that's called having istiqamah, right? So that's called having istiqamah. And so that's that straight staff. That straight staff, that staff of istiqamah. That is what allows you to tame these waves so that you can cross through this world of desires and ups and downs of desiring this and desiring that. Because when you have istiqamah, when you have that consistency in sticking with what Allah has said, preferring what Allah has said, preferring what His Messenger ﷺ has said, and as opposed to your desires, now you will start entering into this state of long-lasting pleasure. And this is, some of the ulama say that this is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Ar-Rahman that the believers are given jannatan, 2 jannahs. First jannah is here, the pleasure that we have within ourselves because of this. And then the second jannah is afterwards. So this is one meaning of the staff of Musa, but actually I realized there's another, I promise this is the last thing, but this is really cool, okay? So I've been talking to you about this X and Y axis and, and all this stuff. Can you think, we've been talking about using your aql to restrain your nafs, using your knowledge of deen and acting in accordance with it to restrain your nafs, right? But we haven't talked about something really important. Dhikr. We said that dhikr is that thing that will quench the nafs' unending desire. There's nothing else that will quench the unending desire of the nafs. Just dhikr will. So how will dhikr modify this diagram? There's an x-axis, there's a y-axis. So now look, this is from Ma'arif al-Quran about this ayah. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu dhkurullaha dhikran kathira. Remember Allah abundantly. Sayyidina Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu stated that there is no form of worship except dhikrullah for which Allah has not fixed a limit. For example, salah is prescribed 5 times a day and the number of rakat are determined for each salah. Fasting through the month of Ramadan is determined. Hajj can only be performed at a certain time. Zakat is prescribed only once a year at a particular rate. But dhikrullah is a form of worship for which there is no limit. This is the only act of worship that we are actually told. This is actually the only thing that we are told. Ulama can correct me if I'm wrong. That you do this excessively all the time. Don't even, just all the time. Do it all the time. So much so the Sahaba would have to put rocks in their mouths when they were going into the area of the bathroom where they would relieve themselves, just in case, because they're so used to doing dhikr that they had to stop themselves. They didn't want to do bi'adab. So we are to aspire to perpetual dhikr. So if you add the z-axis, it makes it 3-dimensional. Those waves that you were seeing of desire, if you do calculus, you actually add a z-axis. That's the 3rd dimension. And if you do that, you get something that looks like an ocean. That's a z-axis. I thought that was really funny. I thought that was just because that's what it is. Because what it is, dhikr is what gives you depth as a human being. It's not just aql controlling my desire, aql controlling my desire, aql controlling my desire. What's the thing that gives you the fuel to do that? It's the dhikr. The dhikr is the thing that gives you depth. The dhikr is the thing that gives you this ocean of ma'rifah that you will have within your own self because of your dhikr, because of your controlling your nafs, and because of your dhikr. And so this is, at the end of it, that's what it looks like. And this is from Hizb al-Bahr. وَسَخِّرْ لَنَا هَذَا الْبَحْرَ كَمَا سَخَّرْتَ بَحْرَ لِمُوسَى. Subject to us this ocean, subject to us, O Allah, these oceans of desires, these waves of ups and downs of desires that you have given us, that we're always beholden to with our phones and with this dunya. Subject it to us, just like you subjected the ocean to Musa alayhi salam.
Jazakumullah khairah, Dr. Saleem Niazi, for an absolutely phenomenal presentation. I think most of us were absolutely not expecting that, and it's seldom that we find a